In May 2024, my mom and I went on an adventure together for our birthday month to Istanbul and Madrid, making this Rick Steves opening sequence all the more inspiring. I first traveled abroad to Greece, seeing sights in places like the Acropolis in Athens and a small castle in Astros, overlooking the Aegean Sea. Seeing the Holy Land was amazing with visits to Jordan, Israel, and the West Bank, Palestine. Eventually, I just didn't have enough and surprised my family by moving to St. Petersburg, Russia, to teach English, from where I was able to visit places like the Baltic states and Finland, falling completely in love with Estonia. Since then, I've continued to travel, meeting wonderful people everywhere I've been. My mother had traveled abroad once to visit me in St. Petersburg, and it was amazing to show her the place I'd called home for a while. I'm sure she never imagined visiting her son in what Peter the Great referred to as Russia's window onto the West, a city built to be a new imperial capital on the Baltic Sea. In 2022, I had gone to visit friends in Istanbul, Turkey, Tbilisi, Georgia, and Aktal, Kazakhstan. When Mom later said that she wanted to travel again, I knew that we had to include Istanbul. Istanbul had blown me away, and I knew it would blow her away too. Mom and I began our adventure by flying from Dulles International Airport in DC with Turkish Airlines. Just standing in front of Turkish Airlines signs was so exciting. Making our trip easier, Americans no longer needed visas to enter Turkey. Even though I only needed an e-visa on my first trip, this was one less thing to worry about. Turkish Airlines is among the top 10 rated airlines in the world, and it's easy to see why. Even in economy, you get these small travel kits with things like a toothbrush, toothpaste, and an eye mask, and the pouch can make a fun souvenir. And for being thousands of feet in the air, the food is pretty good too. I enjoy seeing the travel map of our flight, seeing the places I've been, like Helsinki, Moscow, and Amman, and looking with anticipation at the place I'll be revisiting with my mom. Istanbul straddles the Bosphorus, the passageway connecting the Black Sea to the Sea of Marmara, which is then connected to the Aegean by the Dardanelles. Similar to St. Petersburg, Istanbul is a cultural window of sorts. You've heard the cliches, where the East meets West, where cultures meet. But it's true. The only city straddling two continents. I look forward to showing my mom Constantinople, Constantine's city. Finally, we were touching down in Istanbul.
Hanımefendiler, beyefendiler ve sevgili çocuklar, dünyanın buluşma noktası İstanbul Havalimanı'na hoş geldiniz. Yolculuğunuzun rahat ve keyifli geçmiş olduğunu umuyoruz. Emniyetiniz için kemer ikaz ışıkları sönünceye kadar lütfen yerinizde kalınız. Kemerinizi bağlı tutunuz ve başüstü dolaplarını açmayınız. Tüm elektronik cihazlarınızı kullanabilirsiniz. Uçak park pozisyonuna ulaştığında başüstü dolaplarını açarken dikkatli olunuz.
Mom and I stayed in the hotel I had stayed in before, near the Blue Mosque, close to the historical core of the city. Personally, I liked being so close to all the history and sights. That's what we were there for. We stayed at Zem Hotel, which fit our needs perfectly. Though I had forgotten about the steep inclines from the hotel, Mom handled it well. We definitely got our exercise. Having been before already, I knew my way around and made a pretty good guide if I do say so myself. And honestly, Istanbul is pretty easy to navigate for such a large city. Arriving on a Friday and setting out from our hotel Friday afternoon, we had 4.5 days and saw everything we wanted to see, and then some. One of the things I will say now, that we will get to later in the video, is that people seem to sleep on the Chamlika Tower on the Asian side. I highly recommend it. I also recommend making a point to see the Theodosian walls and, of course, the Valens Aqueduct. We started off by visiting the Theodosian cistern. The Theodosia cistern is one of the many ancient cisterns of Constantinople that lie beneath the ancient city. The cistern was built by Roman Emperor Theodosius II between 428 and 443 to store water supplied by the Valens Aqueduct. Being only about 5 minutes from the hotel, if that, made it a good place to start. Though the cistern isn't as large as something like the Basilica cistern, I think it's still fun to see, and it was a good start for our day. There's a light show involved too. From there we went to the Süleymaniye Mosque, an Ottoman imperial mosque located on the third hill of Istanbul. The mosque was commissioned by Suleiman the Magnificent and was completed in 1557. The mosque is free to enter and far less crowded than the Hagia Sophia and Blue Mosque. We even met a pleasant mosque volunteer who was there to tell visitors about his Islamic faith and the beautiful place of worship. It also has an amazing view of the Golden Horn, the inlet splitting the European side of the city. From the terrace, we got a great view of the Galata Tower. Before calling it a day and settling back into our hotel, we had dinner. We sat down to Turkish pita, a sort of Turkish pizza. Pita makes me think of a cross between pizza and Georgian hachapuri, the staples of cheese and bread slightly changing form as you go from west to east. And of course, I had to have my Turkish tea. Going back to our hotel to rest up for the next day, we heard the call to prayer ring out. It's not something you would hear in Chesterfield, Virginia, and at first Mom was a little apprehensive about it. I'm sure American news coverage about Iraq and Afghanistan and a lot of movies and TV shows don't help. But this city straddling 2 continents and cultures, replete with local treats and American fast food chains, and friendly people, even with some pushy salesmen, and so much history, would definitely work its magic. On our second day, we started off by heading to Sultan Ahmet Maidani, or Sultan Ahmet Square. The Ukrainian word for square, Maidan, as in Maidan Nezalezhnosti in Kyiv, is in fact a Turkic word. Sultan Ahmet Maidani, Maidan. It's fun to make these little connections. Sultan Ahmet Square takes you past Sultan Ahmet Mosque, better known as the Blue Mosque, and to Sultan Ahmet Park, in front of the Hagia Sophia. The square today is for pedestrians, but was once where the Hippodrome stood in Constantinople. Completed in 537, the Hagia Sophia, the Church of Holy Wisdom, was built as an Eastern Orthodox Christian church with a dome that would outdo the architectural achievement of the Pantheon Dome in Rome, and wouldn't be outdone until the construction of the Cathedral Dome in Florence. After Constantinople was conquered in 1453, the church was turned into a mosque until 1935, when it became a museum. In 2020, it was restored back to a place of Islamic worship. Although a controversial decision, I'm okay with it. As a Christian, it's not something I feel like griping about, and I like that such an ancient historical site is still being used for worship today. In 2022, I was able to freely enter, the same way visitors can visit any other mosque. But perhaps realizing the need for some of the museum revenue, non-Muslim visitors were once again required to pay to enter. Restricted to the upstairs, it still had a great view. Worth it. From the Hagia Sophia, we headed to the Grand Bazaar, basically one of the oldest ancient shopping malls in the world, with 61 covered streets and over 4,000 shops. It might not be the cheapest place to shop for your souvenirs, but it's quite the experience. We stopped somewhere for lunch, and I had a lamb wrap with Turkish tea before heading down to the Galata Bridge to cross the Golden Horn to the Galata side of European Istanbul. I had intended for us to go to the top of the Galata Tower, but unfortunately it was closed for renovations, and we spent our time simply exploring the area. So this was my video from 2022 at the top of the Galata Tower, and here we get a good view of the Golden Horn and the Galata Bridge crossing the Golden Horn. The Golden Horn is the inlet that separates the two European sides. There's the Topkapi Palace, the Hagia Sophia, and the Blue Mosque just to the right. Amazing views from the top of that tower. And further to the right, there, I believe that was the Suleymaniye Mosque. I highly recommend visiting the Galata Tower if you can. Built as a watchtower, it was completed in 1348, 677 years ago. I can't get over the fact that I was standing on something so ancient. At one point, the highest spot in that city, and I was looking there across the Bosphorus to another continent at the most modern tower, the Chemlika television tower, that was built only just before I had arrived in 2022. But this is the crossroads of the world, or at least this part of the world. Every ship that wants to get into or out of the Black Sea has to cross through here. Istanbul was Byzantium. It was the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the Ottoman Empire. It used to be called Constantinople. Now it is a thriving city in Turkey. And this is why we travel. Mom and I took the metro back across the Golden Horn and returned to the hotel after a day of a lot of walking and exploring, and then went to the Arasta Bazaar near the Blue Mosque. The Arasta Bazaar is a lot smaller and less overwhelming than the Grand Bazaar, and we had been recommended a great place to shop for some souvenirs, Jennifer's Hammam. At the bazaar, we found what I think was a great place for dinner, Mashale Cafe. We thought the food was good and affordable, and the decor was fun to us, letting us know that we were in the former capital of the Ottoman Empire. We also got dinner and a show with a whirling dervish performance. I remember hearing a dervish referenced in the musical film The Sound of Music.
When I'm with her, I'm confused, out of focus and bemused, and I never know exactly where I am.
Unpredictable as weather.
She's as flighty as a feather.
She's a darling.
She's a demon.
She's a lamb.
She'll outpester any pest, drive a hornet from its nest.
She can throw a whirling dervish out of whirl.
I had assumed that a dervish was a tornado or a dust devil. It turns out that a dervish is a Muslim monk who dances himself into a trance, keeping one foot centered on the Word of God while the other goes out into the world. One hand is raised to receive God's blessings, while the other is lowered to spread the blessings onto the world. It's a prayer in motion.
Are you ready?
What a wonderful way to end the day. We treated Sunday as a relaxed, easy day, taking the metro to the Galata side for breakfast, and then the 10 o'clock English language Mass at St. Anthony of Padua Catholic Church. Growing up with a Protestant and Catholic background, I have found joy in being able to go to Mass most places I've traveled to. When I lived in St. Petersburg, Russia, I was able to attend the Basilica of St. Catherine's as my home church. When Mom came to visit, it was a joy simply to go to Mass like we would at home. Of course, I lived in St. Petersburg, but even when I'm traveling, I'm not a tourist for that 1 hour of worship. I'm just someone going to church. This time in Istanbul with my mom. About an hour before Mass, we found a wonderful little cafe and bookstore where we got breakfast and tea and sat in amazement that they were playing church music. There we were in Istanbul, getting ready to go to church, sitting in a cafe that plays church music every Sunday. Then we were ready for Mass. It was beautiful. After feeling refreshed and renewed from Mass, we took our time and made our way to the Blue Mosque. When I had visited before, there was a lot of scaffolding and work being done inside, so this time it was fun to see the Blue Mosque unobstructed. The Sultan Ahmet Mosque was constructed between 1609 and 1617 during the reign of Ahmet I. It's called the Blue Mosque because of the blue tiles. The word turquoise comes from the French, meaning Turkish. The blue floral and geometric designs impressed French visitors, who called it the color of the Turks. After enjoying the Blue Mosque, we joined a group just outside for a boat tour of the Bosphorus and Golden Horn. We couldn't control the weather and had to deal with a bit of a rainy, chilly day, but it was still beautiful. In warm, sunny weather, fresh fruit on the Bosphorus is one heck of a treat. After the boat tour, I got my obligatory fish wedge, a mackerel sandwich. As a seafood lover, well, it was good. Just as good as last time. We strolled around Hagia Sophia Meydan, took some more pictures, and did a little more souvenir shopping. We returned to Mashale restaurant for dinner, where, along with us, was an American family who had also been there the night before. No need to fix what ain't broken. Then we leisurely took in the sight of the Hagia Sophia and visited a bookstore where I bought Istanbul, the Imperial City. Monday morning we took the tram down to the Galata Bridge for breakfast. On the underside of the Galata Bridge are restaurants, which may not be the cheapest option and are probably a bit touristy. But come on, where else can you have breakfast across the Golden Horn? So right now, we are on the Galata Bridge. Oh, that's perfect. So we are on the Galata Bridge that crosses the Golden Horn. And that is the Hagia Hagia Sophia, 1600 years old. Over 1,600 years old. Our hotel is on the other side of the Hagia Sophia. Originally a church, now a grand mosque. This is where we are having breakfast on the Galata Bridge. And straight out there, this waterway, the Golden Horn, crosses with the Bosphorus. That is Europe, and that is Asia. That spire in the distance is the Kamlika Tower, where Mother and I will have dinner tonight after we take a ferry to Asia. And we're just finishing up breakfast. How's this, Mom? You're an explorer. After an awesome breakfast, we went to the Topkapi Palace. Completed in 1465, the Topkapi Palace served as the grand residence of sultans for nearly 400 years, until the completion of the Dolmabahce Palace in 1856. In that time, it served as the administrative center of the Ottoman Empire. The construction of the palace was ordered by Mehmet the Conqueror after his conquest of Constantinople in 1453. Today, the palace is a sprawling museum with beautiful garden courtyards and buildings showing off the opulence of the Ottoman sultans. The palace kitchens were the largest in the Ottoman Empire, designed to feed up to 6,000 people a day, with a staff of over 800. On display were various items meant to show off the wealth and prestige of the sultans and the empire. Working on my own tea collection, representing Russia, England, and Turkey, I enjoyed seeing the opulent tea sets. Clearly, I have some catching up to do. We continued to explore the palace complex, visiting the harem and private mosque of the Sultan. And took in some more amazing views. The Sea of Marmara. Black Sea is that way. Here's the Bosphorus. We're in Europe, and there's Asia. Cool stuff. We also visited the Hagia Irene, a former Eastern Orthodox church located in the outer courtyard of the Topkapi Palace. behind the Hagia Sophia. Construction of the church began in 532, and it was dedicated to the peace of God. It is one of three churches the emperors dedicated to the attributes of God, along with the Hagia Sophia, wisdom, and the Hagia Dynamis, power. After the fall of Constantinople in 1453, the church was enclosed inside the walls of the palace. The Ottomans used the building as an arsenal until 1826, eventually serving as a Turkish military museum before being handed over to the Turkish Ministry of Culture in 1978. Next, we headed across the street to the Basilica Cistern. With 336 columns, each 30 feet high, it makes me think of the halls of Moria in the film The Lord of the Rings.
The mirrors come to more light. Behold, the great realm and dwarf city of Dwarrowdale.
Well, there's an eye-opener and no mistake.
The Basilica Cistern is the largest of several hundred ancient cisterns that lie beneath Istanbul. It was built in the 6th century during the reign of Byzantine Emperor Justinian I. Today it is kept with little water for public access inside the space. The majority of the columns appear to have been recycled from the ruins of older buildings, likely brought to Constantinople from various parts of the empire, together with those that were used in the construction of the Hagia Sophia. They are carved out of different types of marble and granite. Both Mom and I were taken aback by the grandeur of this underground palace. To put the finishing touch on our day, we headed to the Galata port to take a ferry over to Asia. Simply uttering those words is so cool. A short trip felt like a huge adventure. I loved seeing the other ships going through that ancient waterway and seeing the different languages so necessary for this crossing. It was fun to share that experience with Mom, crossing from one continent to another. Arriving in Katakoy, we were headed to her birthday dinner with an amazing view. The Chamlika Tower is a telecommunications tower with an observation deck and restaurants. Located on Chamlika Hill in Üsküdar, the 1,211-foot tower is already elevated, so it dominates the skyline. An elevator takes you to the top, to Kule 360 restaurant. The food is good, the price is affordable, and the view is amazing. I enjoyed the contrast of looking back over at the European side of the city from the top of such modern architecture in Asia. From Europe to Asia, from the Galata Tower to the Chamlika Tower, from ancient to modern, and it all fit together so harmoniously. Mom enjoyed her birthday dinner. Then we headed back to Europe. On our last day, we headed out to a main road where we could easily catch an Uber, always a yellow taxi, to the Theodosian walls. We went to the Charissus Gate and began exploring. Built between 402 and 450, during the reign of Emperor Theodosius II, the walls protected Constantinople from attack by land. It wasn't until 1453 that the armies of Mehmet the Conqueror broke through, commemorated by this plaque next to the gate. I had always wanted to see the Theodosian walls, and I was finally there.
I can't think of when they were built right off the bat, but these are the Theodosian walls of Constantinople, built during the reign mainly of Theodosius. And Mom and I just took a taxi, an Uber. I wasn't sure we'd find them, but we found them. And there's really there's not tourist site. I mean, there's a little playground over there for children. This been on my bucket list for a long time, but these walls were breached in 1453. These were built on the behind the city, on the European side, where the city was weakest and most vulnerable from attack. They were well protected from the Asian side by the Bosphorus. It doesn't look like it can. So we're just exploring as much as we can. Doesn't look like we can go any further from here, but this is just simple exploration, and I'm having a ball. I've always wanted to see these.
Mom and I found a lovely cafe right next to the walls. What continues to amaze me was the lack of tourists of any kind, and the seeming disinterest of the locals, some of whom simply hung laundry to dry. There we were next to the ancient walls of Constantinople, seemingly all to ourselves, as we sat down to lunch. A caprese sandwich and Turkish tea never tasted so good, and I didn't think it could possibly get any better. And shout out to Sour Cafe. It was delightful. After lunch, thinking about Mom and all that walking, I suggested that we take an Uber back to the historic center. But Mom said she felt good and said we should walk. Thank goodness for my mom. As we were walking, she saw a building that she thought was interesting and had me run across the street to an information marker to find out something about it. As I read, I nearly fell over. The marker read, Fatih Municipality Building. The architect of the structure, dated 1913, is Y. Terezyan. The back facade of the structure opens up to the Valens Aqueduct. I nearly fainted. I had thought the Valens Aqueduct was further out of the city. I didn't do my research very well, so I'm glad we walked, and I'm glad that building caught Mom's eye.
shot of the giant aqueduct bridge built for the ancient city of Constantinople under the Emperor Valens. Boy, does that name ring power to you. Valens.
Alright, so this, again, don't ask me the years, I can look it up later, but this is the aqueduct. So my mother and I were just walking back from a delightful cafe next to the Theodosian walls. And by the way, this is one of the perks of solo travel. Excuse me. This is one of the perks of solo travel, is you can just find stuff. So we were just walking back, decided we felt good after having a delightful little lunch and tea in a cafe next to the Theodosian walls, and lo and behold, we stumble upon the ancient Roman aqueduct that was constructed during the period of Emperor Valens. This aqueduct was part of the water system that helped to supply Constantinople with fresh drinking water, and also supplied the water that was in the cisterns, such as the Basilica cistern that we were in. This is, to me, such a remarkable find. I really can't believe it. I'm looking at an ancient Roman aqueduct in Constantinople. Mom, stand there. Oh, look how big this is. Mom, go stand under one of the arches. This is great. This is our last day in Istanbul, and we are just explorers right now, having a ball. Look at how large that is, constructed by Emperor Valens and his slaves, of course. Wow. Hooray!
On the other side of the aqueduct, we found a market street without the tourists, and had what might be the best tea I've ever had underneath an arch of the Valens aqueduct. In front of one of the stores were large baskets of nuts and dried fruit, and despite the broken English of the man working there, in this non-touristy area, Mom had fun buying her snacks for more walking. And once again, I couldn't believe it. Where was everyone else? Did they even know what they were missing? Probably not, and I might have missed it too, if not for Mom. On our last day, Mom turned out to be the true exploration enthusiast, wanting to investigate a different direction from our hotel that led us to the Sea of Marmara, leading to a final stroll along the Bosphorus, and to the Hagia Sophia in time for the call to prayer. For our final dinner, we had pita again, followed by kanafa, an amazing Turkish dessert with vanilla ice cream. Mom really enjoyed it. That was a perfect day. Because Mom urged that last bit of exploring, we found a wonderful cafe for a goodbye breakfast in the morning. Then we were off to the airport to head to the capital of Spain to see my cousin who was teaching English there. We left filled with appreciation for that wonderful city, the crossroads of the world.
I'm recording. Has this been fun?
Been amazing. Amazing. Mark has been expanding my world.
Under the Valens Aqueduct, and that will never not be cool.